Dear viewers, this video once again reflects the significant drop in the U.S. stock market yesterday. Some might think that calling it a significant drop is an exaggeration. In fact, many of the declines were in tech stocks and growth stocks. But it has been ongoing for a period of time. I can tell everyone, if you subscribe to my Patreon, or the $50 Patreon tier, like exclusive content and more benefits, the greatest contribution I can make to you is three things. First, I will continuously and carefully select stocks. Then I will tell you which one I choose to buy and why. Which one, why not buy it? Out of 100 stocks, I decide not to buy 97 of them. If you hear tips from others, you can compare them with my critiques. I am very strict in my selection, and then do I buy? That's essentially what it means. I will not make short-term predictions. What I'm saying is not investment advice. You can only use what I do as a reference. Second, my contribution to everyone. Hedging is absolutely valuable. For those who have been listening to me in the past month, recently, you would have been continuously reducing your stock holdings. That makes a big difference. I would rather sometimes earn a little less. I can't put my main assets at risk. As soon as I see a potential risk, I recognize it. I will tell everyone. Like this time. I called it the Donald Trump risk, also known as the Donald Trump risk. This risk is too great, so I told everyone. I have some money in bonds. I don't worry about those. Let it accumulate there. As for the rest of the cash, I cut stock holdings 70 to 80. Down to 30%. Those stocks were profits because I felt the Donald Trump risk was too great. I usually don't reduce my holdings because I'm not trying to capture short-term fluctuations. The result was many online friends and I avoided the risk. The funniest is, I have an online friend. When he was in Hong Kong, a few years ago, he heard me say he sold a property in Hong Kong. Then he immigrated to the UK. He deliberately came back to Hong Kong to thank me because he sold a property years earlier. He sold property 2012. Then he went to the UK. He kept in touch with Mrs. Xu. He said he literally followed my advice. Then he went on to buy stocks himself. If his stock account earned $3 million, he would come thank me. He bought tickets. The whole family came over to thank me. I had time to see. He had already earned $3 million. All right, February 25th. The U.S. stock market was weak. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ indices dropped to a new low for the month. I can tell everyone. It wiped out all the optimism after Donald Trump took office. In just 1 month, the stock market started to rise when Donald Trump elected. Why did the stock market rise when Donald Trump was elected? There were two major factors when Donald Trump was elected that caused the stock market to rise overall. One is that he would cut taxes. He planned to cut taxes by $450 billion over 10 years. That's a tax cut of $45 billion each year. Part of it is corporate tax. A lot of it is payroll tax, especially for the middle or wealthy class. The second is deregulation. Deregulation is also beneficial for business. These two things. That's why when Donald Trump came to power, people were optimistic. However, Besides these two things, there are also industries that benefit. For example, the oil industry or the automotive industry. Because he suppressed electric vehicles, these therefore feel benefited. Or steel aluminum, because he would impose tariffs. But now this optimism has completely and utterly vanished. The Nasdaq index fell by 260 points, a drop of 1.35, closing at 19,000 points. The S&P 500 index fell 28 points, closing. The Nasdaq fell sharply. The Dow Jones performed strongly. Dow Jones up 159 points, much better. Its traditional industries closing over 43,000 points. The rise is because its traditional industrial stocks strengthened. Philadelphia Semiconductor, it's a big deal, fell by 11466, closing at 4,888.88. Very complete, 5.8. Tech stocks fell, causing the Philadelphia Semiconductor to fall. Then you need to look at these things. You need to see another thing, which is the fear index, VIX index. The volatility index of the Chicago Exchange, fear index, soared to the highest levels since January 27th. It's around 8 p.m. Hasn't reached panic. During panic, it can go up to 80 or 90. A while ago, it once reached 40. Bitcoin plummeted. Originally also benefited from Trump's rise to power. Bitcoin fell below 90,000, hitting a 3-month low. Compared to the day Trump took office, Bitcoin has already dropped by 20%. Large bank stocks are also under pressure. Large bank stocks, such as J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs, are Trump's concept stocks because he would reduce financial regulation to the minimum. But now they're afraid of an economic recession. They have bad debts. Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, and J.P. Morgan Chase all fell more than 1% because the economy goes into recession. They will have bad debts. Trump's stock price dropped 8%, the most severe, falling below 1 trillion. That is to say, yesterday a netizen told me he has been holding Tesla. Holding until 480 he didn't sell. Surprisingly, he didn't sell. Later, a week earlier, heard it fell $350. He's very happy now. Yesterday, it hovered around $300. That is to say, if you join Patreon, if I start promoting Tesla, I sold most of my Tesla shares. Sold a bit at $300. Sold over $400 down to 20% remaining. If I start again, I will buy Tesla at a lower price. When can buy? If you join my Patreon, I will notify you $50 when to start promoting Trump. Trump is a stock I won't give up on, but in the short term, it's very serious. First, the business in Europe surprisingly dropped a lot. Dropped by 40, 50, while others rose. Everyone else rose. It dropped a lot. Part of the reason is waiting for the release of Model Y. But I am extremely very cautious. I went to ask people. My friends on Clubhouse ordered the new Model Y. Found out that cars were available in March. In the U.S., the sales of the new Model Y are not good. I don't know how much of it is because of Elon Musk's political stance issues. Rushing to buy. Those who bought electric cars from the start. Many hold more progressive views. Trump's recent political stance and his remarks have upset people. From something very simple, you can tell it would offend them, which is Trump vetoing everything. Denying all environmental measures, denying renewable energy, and then using fossil fuels. This matter is already very serious. There's some good news. It rose the beginning. News falls. This is serious. Even with good news, it falls. I really need to be very cautious. Don't start buying so easily. Hold on a little longer. It's about getting approval in China to use a partial FSD. It can't be called FSD. Actually, I see that it just adds some features of the autopilot highways, with a few additions and enhancements for city roads like lane changes and navigation. But it's not the end-to-end model in the U.S. He says he wants to charge over 60,000 RMB. I think he's dreaming. This system is not a mature FSD to begin with, and others don't charge anything for it. Huawei's cars come with full self-driving. Xiaomi's also come with full self-driving. It's the worst performing well-known stock. I have to keep watching its trend until I can buy. I tell everyone, I really like Tesla. I like Tesla, but it's currently very serious. I'm talking issues. We have to wait for its full self-driving to truly show its power, at least until definitely the very end of 2025. All right, the U.S. stock index formed by Apple and Nvidia has dropped 10% from its peak last December. The technical correction definition has seen a market value loss of 1.4 trillion US dollars. That's a big deal, right? The United States Economic Council, one of the reasons for the major drop. Major decline in consumer confidence. Mark's largest drop 2021, the largest single-month decline. Take a look, everyone. Here. You can see this is the pandemic. Dropping down like this. Consumer confidence. Largest single month drop. In 2021, it dropped like this once. Dropped like this. This dropped like this. It's reaching a recession situation. The short-term outlook index plummeted by 11.3%, far below the levels typically associated with economic recession. Already below recession levels, indicating increased concerns among Americans about the economic outlook. In reality, the American public, I set aside all politics, talking politics. I'm purely talking about economics. If you like Donald Trump's political stance, we discuss political positions, but supporting his political stance doesn't mean you have to support his economic policies. I'm asking, do you support his tariff policy? I recently reread The Wealth of Nations, and I really have a strong aversion to tariff policies. Saying that tariff policies benefit the American economy, this is completely heretical nonsense. This is indeed the rhetoric of a cult. What the American public is concerned about is whether prices will rise. Inflation, that's what they are most concerned about. Because when they receive that paycheck, they have spent money. If they feel things seem more expensive, they feel very distressed. So inflation is a major concern for them. And because of inflation, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, which is another major concern for them. Because with higher interest rates, their car loans and mortgage interest will increase. And as a result, they will reduce their spending. And those companies, because they have to pay more interest, will also invest less. This creates a vicious economic spiral all the way down. This is what I've been saying all along, for 4 or 5 months. I also told you, I talked about Tesla early on, the market for full self-driving. Tesla was over $100. Market didn't take it. Suddenly one day, Trump's election was certainly a factor. Secondly, everywhere people were saying its full self-driving was good. Just like this time, I talked about its tariff issues early on. And the market didn't think it was a big deal. Many people who invest in stocks, I think Wall Street, and the general investor's understanding is far behind. what we are responsible for here. I had already thought through the issue. If I feel very certain at that moment, and the market hasn't realized it yet, whether it's good news or bad news, it's an opportunity to make money. This time, the market is going down. If the market goes down, crisis emerges. It's a great opportunity to turn your life around. It's a chance to make a lot of money. If the stock market crashes, if the stock market has the right not to crash, it's because Trump's policy makes a 180-degree turn, makes a sharp U-turn. Then your political reading must be very accurate. If he continues down one path, it's like hitting a wall. This is the current index. This is the expectation. The range is very wide. All right, current financial projection. Those who think it's getting better start to see a big drop. Those who think it will get worse start to see a rise. The president of Chase Investment Council said, the market continues to be in risk-averse mode. Companies are cautious about the outlook for consumer spending. Earlier bad news, which is Walmart issued a warning. This is, Walmart said that the imported products, if tariffs are increased, we'll see a price increase. All right, Federal Reserve Bank President Tom Barkin. Due to current economic uncertainty, monetary policy should be approached cautiously. Simply put, no rate cuts are. Will there be a rate hike? It's not decided yet. If inflation really turns upward, I tell you, it will rise 0.5%. He will be forced to raise rates. Interest rate futures market sees benchmark rate remain unchanged in first half of this year. The market is no longer very hopeful for a rate cut. Trump's trade policy is causing concern. Actually, if something drops significantly, that's serious. At the press conference, I saw people asking him, the tariffs on Canada and Mexico are about to expire. Have they done enough to make you not impose tariffs on them? He said, after the grace period ends, it will continue to be effective immediately. This is serious. Imposing 25% tariff on Canada-Mexico. I tell you first, it will drive inflation up to 6 to 7% within just a month. First of all, it's all the vegetables and fruits. 80% of the vegetables in the U.S. come from Mexico, and 64% of the fruits. If you impose tariffs, adding a 25% tariff will of course increase the price. Mexican vegetables, fruits not be cheaper. That's the first point. The second point, the automotive industry is affected. The automotive industry is severely affected. I've mentioned that 25 to 40% of the components for the three major American companies are made in Canada. And then the cars are sold in the U.S. Japanese cars, European cars. A significant portion is made in Mexico. There will be a shortage of cars. If there is a shortage of cars, I suggest to the viewers to buy a new car. Keep the old car for a few months. Wait for used car prices to skyrocket. You will see. Third, the cost of building houses has risen significantly because the price of wood has increased. Fourth, everything with steel aluminum. In big price increase, especially small hardware products. The White House is preparing to impose stricter restrictions. Imposing stricter restrictions, which will affect a large number of people. This is why I have to cut TSMC holdings, because this tariff makes me very uncomfortable. Starting from April 2nd, a 25% tariff will be imposed on semiconductors from Taiwan. Then in over 6 months, it might increase to 50%. In 5 years, it could increase by another 100%. When tariffs cause semiconductor prices to rise so much, naturally, demand will decrease. Nomura Securities says the market increasingly believes